Hi, I'm James Argue, and I'm here to talk to you about cryptology, so tales from the crypto. I'm presenting to you today from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. We'll start with some terms. Cryptology is the study of cryptography and cryptanalysis. Cryptography, graphy, writing, science of codes, writing codes. Cryptanalysis, breaking down those codes, trying to read the secrets. Plain text is something that is readable. Ciphertext is something that has been encrypted, shouldn't be readable. Encryption is transforming something from clear text to ciphertext, so making it so that it is unreadable. Decryption, the inverse of that, so we're transforming data from ciphertext to plain text. Encoding is to encode something, so it's changing into another format. Decoding is to change it back to original format. Encoding, think of those QR codes. So they're open, they're public, they're not encrypted. They're just a really different way to read things that my phone's good at. I'm not the best at. So for a bit of history, let's look at some classical ciphers. Something like running key. These have been used over time, various situations over the years. Running key, you take some plain text and you mix it with a running key. The running key has to be very long as or longer than the plain text that you're trying to encrypt with. And it has, so a known running key has the known text that you're starting from. So here's the Catcher in the Rye. Start reading the Catcher in the Rye. Start right in there. Here comes some plain text. And both of us, you and I, us secret partners, are going to know the Catcher in the Rye. Okay, great. Page 8. Running key, just written out, no spaces. And then you can see this. Well, maybe replay this later and zoom it in a lot. You'll see this matrix of letters up in the upper right. And that's this pre-shared grid of like a decoder ring, trying to share a secret pattern. And when we're encoding this, so plain text will be, I go to the H, go across to the H, go down to the running key, the T, and then that returns an A. For the next letter, E, look down. The I, that returns an M, and so on. Decrypting this would be the ciphertext, the running key, and then you can match it back up to the plain text. Concealment is like in the movies. Oh, this letter, wait, but look at, if you take all the first letters of this letter, then it gives us the secret message and latitude and longitude, but spelled out, so that's a lot of letters. 139 west. Substitution, replacing data to hide original text. So the blank is representing the blank. Of course, you wouldn't use blank because then the bad guys would know how to decipher that. Transposition is shuffling and reordering to hide original text. So as you can kind of see the pattern here, it's permutation. So you're taking a message, writing it out longhand, and then restructuring it. So this one's written in columns. There's 5 characters per column, and the columns get, you can see here sort of in the upper right, there's two columns of 5 characters each, and they start out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're written out just longhand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, and then shuffle the deck. So 3, 2, 4, 5, 1, and then write out what you got. So the ciphertext is really just a jumble of the original text. A one-time pad is, it seems like a running key, except it's, well, as long as you need it. So it can be any length of characters, and is considered highly secure because everything is getting used one time only. So instead of we're going to use Catcher in the Rye, It's, hey, here's a whole string of letters, and only you and only I know only those letters. The fun part is, how did we both get those letters? So are we going to sit down, coffee shop, napkin? It'll take a while. I don't know if that'll be an efficient way, but you get the idea. So the one-time pad, it gets mixed with the plain text to ciphertext. You can see this one-time pad is taking the plain text and it's converting it to a number. Oh, W is equal to 22. B is equal to 2. Alphabetical, the number of the letter, the position of the letter in the alphabet. Add them together. Oh, that's 24. 24 is X. And we're going to probably mod that. So once you get past Z, you start all over again. Inverting it, you take your X, you take your one-time password B, and then you subtract X from B, W. Totally makes sense, right? I don't know, just look at it. Goes down one way, comes back up the other way. Product ciphers is using more than one tactic, using more than one cipher so that it scrambles it, and to combat language characteristics. The movie about breaking the German codes, that was, at the end of everyone was a predictable closing, and it was that they started to latch on to. So collision, you got to call the police and fill out a report. No, that's not true. It's different messages produce the same hash. So when you're going through and creating a product, creating ciphertext, basically a collision is that everything's supposed to be unique. Everything's supposed to only be one input and one mixture of, whatever code, one-time pad code, something like that. If you get the same answer from using two different numbers, that's a collision, and it's possible. So hashing ends up with a certain amount of numbers every time, and if you came up with those numbers, like, what are the chances? Yeah, exactly. What are the chances? It's crazy, but it is mathematically possible and does happen. Key clustering, different keys could generate the same ciphertext from using the same plaintext. An avalanche, small changes in the key or plaintext significantly change the ciphertext. So avalanche is, change this one bit, change this one letter, and then while just the tumblers fly around, and the end product is really different than without that change. Diffusion, small changes in the plain text. So avalanche, small changes in the key. Diffusion, small changes in the plain text. So different tactics of the inputs and making sure that the ciphertext is harder to break, harder to reverse. Confusion, small changes in key lead to significant change in ciphertext. So the key, small changes in the key, changes in the ciphertext. An avalanche could be both plaintext and key. Let's talk about modern ciphers. There's different types: symmetric ciphers versus asymmetric ciphers, also known as algorithms. One is symmetric cipher, one key used to encrypt and decrypt. So the same key used to encrypt is the key that will be necessary to decrypt. Block ciphers and stream ciphers are both symmetric, both different types of symmetric. And you can see by the different block ciphers that mostly, like, how many times do you mix it up? How much of a block do you use? How big of a key do you use? That's the differences, some of the biggest differences between stream cipher. It's still the same key one way or the other, but it doesn't divide up the content into blocks. It's basically built to take a whole bunch of flow of information and, like a zipper, encrypt it on the way through. Asymmetric, these are two different keys, or two different numbers is what they are. And they're sort of the yin and yang. So one can encrypt, the other one can decrypt. or vice versa. So they're related, mathematically related, but they're different. And we'll look more at this at the Diffie-Hellman and RSA. Other algorithms are DSA, elliptical curve, PGP. Here is a table of modern ciphers. Study and know these modern ciphers, and then go and Google them and figure out how we are being silly and do not memorize all of these. A lot of these are here just for fun, to play with your brain. But there you go. So there's block cipher, symmetric, bunch of symmetrics. Just as examples, key size is there, block size is there, rounds is there. AES is probably the one that you're going to really want to memorize out of this. Symmetric ciphers, okay, again, two instances of the same key. So the sender and the receiver are using the same key. I've got more on this later. It is much faster than asymmetric, 1,000 times faster. Yes, it is. You need a secure mechanism to deliver the keys. Why is that? Well, because if anyone has the same key, then anyone can decrypt it. And that's kind of the secret. Each pair of users needs a unique key. So key management issues. How do you generate that? How do you know it's unique? How did you ensure that the right person received it? And that kind of brings us to the next point. There is confidentiality. So it's shielded information. It's ciphertext. It's going to be hard to read and really hard to break and all that. No non-repudiation. So again, my good buddy James sent me this key, sent it in the mail. Now, I didn't realize that he was visiting Mexico when he sent it, but, you know, he's trustworthy. Here comes a stream cipher. So, as I was saying, a whole bunch of information, content coming through, and as it does that, kind of like a zipper, you know, plain text comes in, key stream generator generates a key on the way. It's been set up with a certain pattern. Both parties are going to be able to duplicate that because you're going to need the same key both ways to send into ciphertext. This, you listening to me right now, we are doing this right now because the internet has an awful lot of streaming encrypted information. HTTPS ends up sending out a big stream of content, and because I'm long-winded, I just proved it. There, see? Look at that, built in. Here's some block ciphers. Different than a stream cipher. It takes a bunch of content. It's not like it can only take so much data, but what it'll do is it'll have to divide that up, break it down, and then start to mix up that with your key. It takes the plain text, mixes it up, and as you can see, there's these rounds as well. So how many rounds are you going to do? And there are some types there. Here is kind of the current standard, I guess, if there is one, because there's several in play all the time, but DES, and then latest DES, AES. AES is a little bit like this too, you know. It's all block ciphers. Again, they're built better. They break things down differently. They mix things up differently. DES, the original DES here is showing you that it takes a initial permutation of your plain text, throws it through some rounds, mixes it with different keys until you get your ciphertext at the end. So Diffie-Hellman key exchange. It was the first asymmetric key algorithm. So you've got two people, you've got an untrusted medium in between, something like the internet. You don't want anyone to be able to pick up your keys and use them. So mainly used to establish a common key. Common key then can be used to maybe share secret keys, like symmetric ones. So I like this paint one because, I don't know, colors. That's why. So the common paint, so Alice and Bob here, they've both sent a message to each other saying, let's start with yellow. Okay. And then on their own, they're going to decide a different color. Now, this is mathematically, this is just numbers. They have a common number between them. They have their own random number that they've chosen for themselves. They mix them, and as you can see, Alice's mixture and Bob's mixture, even though they started with yellow, it gets splattered into a peach or a, I don't know, what's that, blueberry color, depending on your secret color. Well, they don't know each other's secret colors, but they have their own secret color. So I mix with my secret color. If I was Bob, I've got this cyan color to make my blueberry shake color. I send my blueberry shake over to Alex. She sends her peach, looks like a little peach shake to me, and then we mix our colors again. So we mix our colors and then we mix our colors again. That's weird. But they're numbers. So I shove my number into the product. Alex is going to shove her number into the product. Each of us have now used the same math. We've still put something to the power of my number, something to the power of my number again. And the switched product blends those together, and then you come back with the same number in the end, common secret. Here's a website, does it better than me. And over here, vulnerable to man in the middle. Why is it vulnerable to man in the middle? Because Alice and Bob. What if I was talking to Bob, but he sounds like he had a cold that day. Well, oh, hey Bob, sorry to hear that. But he wasn't Bob. He was, wait, who was the evil person? Alice, Bob, evil person. RSA keys is the most popular for encryption and authentication. Two very big numbers. These are the ones I was talking about. Asymmetric. They're related mathematically. They're different. You can't encrypt and decrypt with the same one. So they're related. You have to go get the other one. We're going to play with this a bit in a while. So don't worry about too much of the math. There it is. Here is an example of just the RSA keys themselves. Here's SSH keys for Linux authentication, and you do your SSH keygen. You generate two keys. You've got a pub and a private key, and check out those permissions. So the public key is, oh, look at that. It's readable to all the people, all the groups, all the user system. And the private key is readable only to the person, to the one person, public and private. Why is one public? Why is one private? Random chance. They're two numbers. It's how you treat them. So why is it public? It's public because that was the second one generated here. It's the one that got the permissions. It's a number which is related to the private number, not the same.